Okay, so Asia and London for today. Asia and London. So first hour in of the Asia session went in. It was a bit more bearish considering how we closed during the New York session on Friday. I was expecting Sunday open to see some sort of reprice into the equilibrium of this last range. So again, I was more bearish, but going into market open, there was no real good setups, nothing considerable, nothing high probable. I was probably looking for some sort of hourly manipulation in this case. As you can tell, price kind of just gapped down heavily off some news, I believe, before, meaning we needed to generate some sort of liquidity before we're going to see any move higher. In this case here, once I kind of came into it, I saw probably the best area to look for a short would have been this hourly manipulation here. This one wasn't amazing because eventually you didn't really have time backing this move, but considering the price action that we saw here, this was probably the best area to look for a short. You had, again, you had a clean ass draw back to the downside. You're already bearish. You had some sort of hourly manipulation. You had the manipulation leg around the 8 o'clock macro, which was the Asia macro, and then of course you had your confirmation. In this case here, if you were really bearish, you could put your short maybe up there, and then you're targeting the equilibrium, the range. This here is probably not the greatest trade because it's out 1-to-1, so you have to be really bullish. Maybe you can lower your stop to this to make it 1.5 R&R, which makes it a bit better. But yeah, that would have been probably your only setup for the day, which eventually it did work. Maybe if you wanted to really make your risk tight around here, you would have been stopped out eventually. But this setup did work. Price kind of gave that manipulation leg during the bit after the Asia macro, the 80 PM macro in Asia, and it eventually did see that move down. And the 5-minute inverse was kind of your best setup, best displacement setup for a move lower. So yeah, that's pretty much how price played off this time. 1 minute, it's not really much. There's a lot of chop here in the 1 minute. Nothing looked quite exceptional in my viewpoint. Had a few nice 1 minute inverse fair value gaps, which you could have maybe taken after the 9 PM macro for that move down, but that wasn't an hourly sweep level, so there's kind of a disconfirmed setup in my eyes, or just not a high probability setup. So London now. Going into London, I think I was more bullish for the open. I just saw price had already repriced quite heavily down. And also what you saw before this macro here, you saw this kind of 2 AM manipulation here. This 4-hour candle opened and price took those lows there. Fuck off. Excuse my language. So you already saw this manipulation here, so looking at price, it kind of made sense to see some sort of reprice to the equilibrium maybe of this minor range here, or to go back into this previous equilibrium. You had a bit of an inverse fair value gap as well, or a bit of a little bearish fair value gap here, so it kind of made sense for price to reprice higher, just to take one of these kind of small generated highs you had here. So we came into, of course, the open here of London, 3 AM macro. You already saw this manipulation there, so it wasn't really much. Maybe if you were a bit early to the setup, you could have looked for a long here to take one of these highs. Eventually came back into the equilibrium, took a high, and at this point here, price kind of comes up here and it consolidates. And if you're still bearish, this one would be tough. Like, I wasn't looking at this. I probably would have been more bullish. I probably would have waited to see what price wanted to do here before I really wanted to be bullish. If I saw continuation higher from this fair value gap, I would have looked for some sort of long to take all these generated highs here. But in this case here, what you had is, yep, you had an inverse fair value gap set up, and price took these relative to equal lows. And pretty much you had another really nice short setup. The risk was not as great. It's around more of a 1-to-1 ratio trade, but it still worked quite well. It had a really good delivery. 3M macro, took some sort of hourly high, some sort of manipulation during the macro. There was a bit of fair value, very small fair value gap there, and then of course you had the PDRA confirmation, which went with the order flow of price. For the rest of the session, rest of London, there wasn't much that going on. It was very choppy. Price didn't really want to do much in this case. So yep, that's Asia and London. Asia, again, order flow was bearish, kind of had the idea. The hourly manipulation was what really started that displacement move down. And then for London, London would have been a bit more difficult. It made sense to be a bit more bullish for at least a move into equilibrium from the open, but then pretty much price really dictated through the 5-minute inverse fair value gap that it wanted to go lower.